Scott Barron with School Growth, and we're glad that you have joined us here for a discussion around campus safety and security. We had the real privilege of being a part of a training program in advanced campus security that the Draco Group led a couple of weeks ago. And as a part of that, we had some great questions that were asked by some of the school administrators because they began to see what it was like to truly handle an active killer when they were on campus, but also to be aware of some of the key indicators of what to look for and how to. It was just an introduction. It was not a certification program or a real in-depth, but it was enough to pique our interest and to begin having a real dialogue, an informed dialogue around campus safety and security. And so we wanted to carry that to the next step. So we've invited Sergeant Barry Barnes to join us from the Hapeville Police Department to share with us a little bit from his experience. He's been on the police force for 19 years. And so he has extensive experience working with the SWAT team, working as an officer on the streets, and knows about this connection that can happen between school leaders and their police department and having a healthy relationship there. So thank you for joining us for this conversation together. So we've been talking a little bit about what we mean by safety and security, and one of the things that we've talked about is this idea of creating this bond. I mean, as school administrators, we're usually counting on the police department for a lot of our safety and security, right? So what I wanted to ask Sergeant Barnes is, what is the training that police officers go through that we could expect as school leaders? What should we expect from them, and how do we strengthen that relationship together? So that's one of the questions I want to ask is, so when you think about just, overall, different police departments around the country, they do get different levels of training. But when they go through training, what is it that prepares them to handle some of the safety concerns that we have on school campuses?
A lot of times they'll run through scenarios. The most opportune time to do that is during summertime when the school is actually empty and they're able to run the scenarios through the school in their area so they can become more familiar with it, that sort of thing.
So scenarios like an active killer or
right.
a suicide situation?
Yeah, most of the time it's just going to be an active killer situation where somebody's gone in and started actively killing someone, usually by gunfire. It's like the dynamics have been changing over the years since, I guess, the Columbine incident.
Sure.
But it has changed from, okay, stand by and wait for SWAT to, wait till you get 4 officers together and then breach through the door and start searching for the bad guy.
Yeah.
It is a paradigm shift for the most part as far as response to an active murderous person, taking lives.
Sure.
And it's hard for a lot of officers to kind of get that out of their head that you're not going slow and deliberate anymore. You're going as fast as you can to the bad guy when you
try to confront. Right.
Absolutely.
And so usually that response time is what, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
In our area, our response time is less than 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes. Okay.
And that's anywhere in the city from anywhere.
Okay.
That's average.
Okay.
That's not the least amount of time. That's the average.
Okay, got it. Mm-hmm. And is that like a national? Is there a national average, or?
I'm not exactly sure what the national average is, but I would venture to say that it's probably twice as long as that, if not more.
And as police officers are trained, obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of training they go through, but it's my understanding that some of that training, a lot of it is more just standard what police officers do, because obviously you're patrolling a large community. How much of that is geared towards really prevention of issues on a school campus?
Hardly any. I mean, you can get some response training. As far as prevention, the biggest thing we can do for just all crimes is prevention is the community. Working with the community, letting them help us with crimes that are happening in their area. When it comes to school campuses and stuff like that, the only prevention is no prevention. You can't prevent it. It's not, I mean, you can't stop it. You can put up gates, you can put up cameras, you can put up whatever you want, but obviously it's still happening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, There's no stopping it.
So
Somebody wants to do it.
part of that relationship that the school has with the police department is to go in and understand what that training is. Like, have they been through, I've heard of alert training, right? And so that's supposed to prepare them for responding to an active killer. But again, the prevention, it sounds like what you're saying, it still falls back on the school leadership on the prevention side of things.
Well, being able to work with administrators with certain schools in my area, what I'm seeing the most of is the police department can do their training. They can do the alert training. They can do active killer training, stuff like that. The administrators, faculty, and staff do their training. Hardly ever do they commingle and work together. Hardly ever. The only time that's happened is if by chance, they run into each other. Like if I go talk to the principal of the elementary school that's in our city,
right,
and tell them, hey, we want to run an active killer class through the school this summer. Do you think it'd be possible for us to use the school? We promise we won't mark up the floors and blah, blah, blah. We'll keep it clean. And then typically they'll allow us to do that. We run the class, and there's hardly ever any faculty there. You may have, custodial person there cleaning up or what have you,
but still the school leadership,
Absolutely.
the faculty have to be on that front line in terms of prevention, being aware of some of those threats, looking for those key indicators of certain behaviors, or knowing how to then take action as quickly as possible.
Of course.
Because the police really, they're not going to be there to do that. Right? I mean, they could kind of be in the right place, right time, but I mean, it's kind of like throwing the dice, it feels like.
Yeah, throwing the dice or winning a lotto. I mean,
really? Because
you got to think about it. The administrators, the teachers, the faculty, the students, they know that school better than we do. If something happens bad there, I'm probably going to be on call on the other side of the city. But the faculty is going to be there.
Right.
That's a common denominator. They have to be the ones that respond to it, or they're going to have to do something,
right,
instead of just kind of sitting there. And I don't know.
Okay.
I've talked to a couple of administrators there. Their protocol is, shut and lock the doors and put up a color-coded piece of cardboard in the window.
Right.
I told them my concerns about that. I understand, what their protocols and all that stuff is, but
yes,
when it really gets down to it, when we get there, typically everything's already over with, and we're just taking a report.
Yeah. Well, and that's where, I mean, it's great to have the cameras and some of the other things that are there to document what happened. But it's kind of one of the things I've learned from the guys of the Draco group is calling them security cameras maybe a misnomer, right?
Yes.
Because it's more of a crime documenter rather than a prevention. Because very seldom does a school have someone monitoring that and then they're taking action as a result of what they're seeing on the camera, right? Unless they've really gone that extra mile and have some training and other pieces in place. So really, that's just helping out the police go figure out what happened and kind of count the bodies or do what they have to do, right? So then when you think about what we want to, of course, as school leaders, we want to have a great relationship with our police department. We got to have that. What are some of the things then that we could do that would help the police officers in building a relationship, but also that when they come on campus, they've got I think whether it's in the hallways or other things that we could do to make their job easier.
Training. I mean, if we could get with the administrators in the schools, and the faculty and train together, almost like cross train, where at one point or another there was police departments and fire departments. They cross train where firemen were police officers and police officers were firemen. It's a crazy concept. Union City did it years ago.
How about that?
It's a crazy concept, but and I think in this situation, it would work very well, because at that point you're talking about the faculty and administrators knowing what's going to happen when we get there, what needs to happen before we get there,
right?
What they can do to make the threats stop.
Yeah.
Instead of just having 4 or 5 people within that faculty saying, okay, y'all are going to be in charge of security. All right. Well, we still got another 95 people on the faculty. They can at least know what y'all are doing. They can have eyes,
Absolutely. And that cross training sounds like and even with police officers, right? That's ongoing training. It's not like a one and done kind of check the box and okay, we did that, let's move on, right? It seems like the best campus security is going to involve an ongoing training process.
Yes, well, and that's just it. It's just like it's like a fire drill. They do it every month. That's kind of, that. I mean,
But how seriously do they do it? I mean, I've been a part of fire drills a long time. I ran schools for about 20 years, and sometimes the fire drill is more of a compliance, right? We did it; it was done. Now, likely we're going to have a fire,
right. Well, you think about all the other fire preventative things that are among you right now. That's fireproof. These chairs are probably fireproof. Fireproof. Everything in here is fireproof.
And that design aspect is so critical.
Right.
And you mentioned earlier also in a conversation about painting the hallways, right? So that if an officer is going through, whether it's a fire or whether it's an active killer, that they can know where they are in the hallways, not to figure out, on third floor, fourth floor, where am I?
Right.
So I love that idea. I think having the color-coded hallways and also some thought put into the design of entries and exits and the gates, because there's a whole design that goes into campus safety and security. So that was fascinating to me to learn that from you, as well as in our conversations with the folks from Draco. So last thing is, as we're looking at, obviously as school leaders, we've got tight budgets. We're trying to figure out, how do we prioritize things? If you were talking to a group of school administrators out here, and you could say, hey guys, this is where you want to put your money, what would that be towards?
It'd have to be, it's not just about paying somebody to do it. I mean, you have police officers like that too. I mean, and it's all about how bad do you want it. For me, I train on my off time. I train because I want to increase my survivability. And in doing that, I'm increasing everybody around me, their survivability as well. I think a lot of it can be done volunteer. I think there's a lot of teachers and a lot of administrators out there that would be willing to take on a challenge of training themselves or getting training from professionals on how to react, because they're the ones that are going to have to save themselves. And that's all it is.
Sure.
I'm not going to do anything because the cops are going to be here. Well, maybe they'll be there before you get killed.
Yep.
But you really have to take it on yourself.
That makes sense.
And if you don't, you're just decreasing your survivability.
Yeah, so putting that money into the training, into looking at the design, and just continuing to, carefully advancing their levels of safety and security. It's not going to be what I have seen so far, as I've really invested a lot of my own time in understanding a lot of these key issues. It's not something that unless you all of a sudden have a major donor or some grant that you can plow a lot of money into it. It's probably not going to be some major giant step forward, but there's so many incremental things that you can do. Building a great relationship with your police departments is critical. Building those conversations, joint training together, and then making wise investments into, especially the faculty and staff training, and then getting the right equipment in place. Sounds like that's the best way to go forward.
And it's all, how much is a child's life worth to you?
Yeah, right.
To me,
Absolutely.
it's priceless. I put every dime that I had in the budget in the training of saving those lives.
Yeah.
Everything else, secondary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. This has been a
Absolutely.
great conversation.
Pleasure.
We hope that you're able to continue to advance your campus safety and security. It's one of those things that it's a priority for your parents for sure. And we know that it's something that we have to do because we do care about our kids. We love our children. We want them to be safe. And we also have we have a legal responsibility as well to do the things that are necessary to equip our faculty and make sure that our campus can be as safe and secure as possible. We're going to post some other information up on the website there on schoolgrowth.com. And so we'll look forward to carrying on the conversation. If you have questions, send me an email. It's scott@schoolgrowth.com, and we'll follow up and try to help you as you're advancing your campus safety and security design. Keep up the great work, and we'll talk to you soon.